survivors, and welcome to Survivor's Guilt, the only channel that determines your odds of surviving 2018's surprisingly jolly Santa Jaws. So stay tuned till the end for your survival stats. I'm your sharp-dressed slasher turned horror host, GhostFake. Now I hope you like Grandpa's favorite homemade eggnog after it's been sitting in the Louisiana sun for 6 hours, cause this movie is getting spoiled. Santa Jaws, written by Jake Kiernan and directed by Misty Talley, and starring Reid Miller, Courtney Lauren Cummings, Hawn Tran, Scott Allen Perry, Haviland Stillwell, Miles Doleac, Carrie Lazar, Jim Klock, and Arthur Marroquin. Santa Jaws is about an aspiring illustrator who gets a magic pen from his grandfather for Christmas that brings his comic to life. We open up to a hostage situation wherein Santa is holding Jenny at tree point while a shark circles the dock, before Casey shows up to save her. Santa convinces Casey to drop his gun and fight like a man, which he does, eventually kicking Santa in the sleigh bells, before kicking him into the river. The shark swims towards Santa, and Santa disappears under the water and into the meat bank at deposit number 1. And the shark resurfaces with a new Santa hat. Wait, a free meal and a free hat? The hell is this? Christmas at the homeless shelter? And as Casey and Jenny proclaim their love for each other, Casey falls silent, and Jenny's calls for Casey dissolve into Steve's calls for Cody. Wait, so that deposit wasn't real? I think I'm gonna be sick. We here get introduced to Cody, an aspiring illustrator who is working with his friend Steve on a comic book called Santa Jaws, but the two of them can't agree on how it should end. We then get introduced to Clark, the owner of the comic shop they hang out in, and after a brief conversation about the comic book store's upcoming Christmas party the next day, Cody heads home, where he spies on the girl across the street named Jenna. We then get introduced to his family, his brother Josh, his grandpa Joe, his uncle Mike, and Mike's wife Georgia, and his dad Peter and mom Caroline, whom we learn is organizing a community dinner that conflicts with the shop's Christmas party. Cody gets a text from Steve warning him that his mom just got off the phone with their school's principal about a drawing Cody made depicting the principal in question, and that he'll certainly be calling Cody's mom next, which he does. And the principal sends Caroline the picture that Cody drew in response to the implementation of school uniforms. Caroline grounds Cody for a week, making the Christmas party even more of an impossibility. Later that night, Uncle Mike has a heart-to-heart with Cody, letting him know that he has a lot of friends in the art world that he could hook Cody up with. And also, in spite of his mom's authoritarian parenting, he should cut her a break, before he takes a call and leaves his lighter with Cody. Hey Cody, what's that lighter telling you? Cody Darko contemplates burning the whole house down, and then heads into his room for the night and finds a present sitting on his desk from his grandpa. He opens it to find a wooden case with a cool pen. He starts using the pen to fine-tune his Santa Jaws drawing while wishing his family away.
I'm better off alone.
Hey, that's better than burning the house down, right? Early the next morning, over at the marina, we see the Santa Jaws has come into being, complete with the Santa hat, and it then tangles itself in Christmas lights and swims off. Cut over to Cody's room, where Grandpa Joe is waking up Cody to go fishing, telling him that on their way back, he can swing Cody by the comic shop Christmas party. They head to the marina and begin fishing. Cody opens up about his teenage issues, and Grandpa offers some advice about facing fears and taking chances and stuff, before getting hammered on his homemade eggnog.
Want a little snort? Sure.
But when he offers some to Cody, Cody drops the thermos in the river, and when Grandpa Joe tries to retrieve it, Santa Jaws pulls Grandpa Joe into the meat bank at deposit number 1.
Cody!
Cody runs all the way home and tells his parents that Grandpa was attacked by a shark in the fishing hole, only to get grounded for telling lies, and then getting his phone confiscated. Inside the house, Cody contemplates what he should do, and ultimately decides that he must do something, so he gets prepared and leaves. He rides his bike to the comic shop and tells them what happened. Believing it to be a joke, Steve schools him on the backstory of Santa Jaws, that she was born a runt and had to fight to survive, and that she gained evil Santa's powers when she ate him. Cody asks Clark what he did with the Santa Jaws comic that they lent him, and he tells them that he lent it to a girl named Jenna, which is Cody's crush from across the street. Cut over to the family restaurant where Peter and Georgia are decorating and Caroline is getting the food ready, and we find out that Uncle Mike and Georgia rented a yacht for the annual Christmas Day boat parade, and they have to get going before dinner is served.
Hashtag Christmas spirit.
Cut over to the rented yacht where Mike is decorating with lights and Georgia is all excited because her Snapstagram followers haven't seen her in a bikini in months. But when Mike goes to fire up the boat, the engine won't turn over, and while he tries to figure out what the problem is, Georgia gets in a floaty and takes some selfies. Uncle Mike finds Christmas lights stuck in the propeller before he gets attacked by Santa Jaws and finds himself in the meat bank at deposit number 2, gifting Santa Jaws the sleigh bells that were around his neck. Cut over to Steve and Cody, who have arrived at Jenna's house to retrieve their comic, only to find out that she actually enjoyed it. But it turns out that she may have forgot it in her dad's boat, but she offers to go with them to find it. Cut over to the restaurant, where Georgia shows up and tells them that something pulled Mike into the water. Peter and Caroline offer to find Mike while Josh takes Georgia home. Meanwhile, back at the marina, Jenna returns the comic to the boys, while this elf sits on the dock eating his lunch, when Santa Jaws pushes the boat into him, severing his legs. Lucky for the kids, this is happening on the same dock they are on, and when the elf, who took his job way too seriously, comes wobbling up to them, Santa Jaws slams into the dock, knocking him into the water, so that she can finish what she started, shortening this elf's legs before shortening his lifespan into the meat bank at deposit number 3. Cut over to the Big Easy comic book shop, where Josh expected to find Cody, to let him know that he believes Cody was telling the truth about Grandpa, and to break the news about Uncle Mike, when Cody and the others show up. Jenna suggests that they call the police, but Clark says that the police are all working on setting up the parade. Jenna suggests also that they should just avoid the water, but Cody believes that they need to kill Santa Jaws in order to save the town, and delivers a rallying speech, before Clark shows him his costume armory, with which they can fight her. Cut over to Mike's rented yacht, where Peter and Caroline are looking for Mike, when they get a sighting of Santa Jaws, and come to the realization that Cody was right, and they leave to go find their sons. Cut back to the comic shop, where everyone is getting ready for battle, when Steve notices Cody's cool pen.
Hot hat grubby mutt?
That's Elvin.
It's German.
And Jenna, who knows German, is able to translate the engraving. They learn that whoever has the pen has great power, and with generosity and heart, it can only do good, but to beware of anyone who uses it for selfish gains. They leave to go fight the shark, but the pen drops out of Cody's backpack and they leave without it. The group arrives at the bay, and Steve reminds them that according to the comic, Santa Jaws is attracted to anything Christmas, so they take Josh's phone and start playing Christmas music. And shortly after, they can hear the approaching sleigh bells of Santa Jaws, and after using their weapons to no avail, Santa Jaws swings her tail and wraps the Christmas lights around Georgia, pulling her into the water. Georgia uses her candy cane to stab out one of Santa Jaws' eyes, before she disappears under the surface and into the meat bank at deposit number 4. The remaining group head to safety and reevaluate what happened. They realize that the weapons didn't hurt her, but Georgia's candy cane did, and quickly come to the realization that not only is Santa Jaws attracted to Christmas paraphernalia, she is susceptible to it, so they leave to find new weapons. Steve and Josh search a building and find some boar killer danger explosives, while Cody and Jenna make their weapons more festive, and bond over comics.
I like the human fly the best.
I get a new issue every Tuesday if you'd want to borrow them.
Which is the least believable part of this movie. We all know girls don't read comics, cause they can't read. Bro, that's a joke. Don't even come at me on this one. The truth is, I can't read, because I don't. Anyway, Josh and Steve arrive with their danger explosives and Christmas bulb ornaments to pack the danger explosives into. The crew put together some Christmas chum in an attempt to lure the shark to them, and when it works, they begin their attack and the weapons appear to be working. But when Steve almost drops one of the Christmas bombs, he catches it before it lands in the water. But then Santa Jaws catches him and lands him in the meat bank at deposit number 5. Meanwhile, Cody's parents show up looking for their boys, and grill Clark until he tells them that they went to the marina. And back at the marina, Cody mourns his dead friend, and Jenna muses that since the pen brought Santa Jaws to life, maybe they can use it to kill her. But when Cody can't find the pen, we flash over to the comic book shop, where Clark has found it. And when Clark doesn't answer the phone, they race back to the shop to find it. When they arrive, Clark introduces them to his Russian girlfriend, Svetlana, who just flew in today. They call him out on his BS, and he goes to the back to get their pen. But after a little while, the group gets suspicious when they notice a huge stack of cash behind the counter, and realize that Clark's not coming back. While in the background, we can see that Clark is looking for a way to get out of there. They see him drive off, but when they go to leave, they realize that he took their keys, so they grab some bikes and follow after him. They follow all the way to the docks, where he commandeers a boat, or attempts to anyway. They demand that he give the pen back, but Clark is too mesmerized by it and threatens to drop it in the water if they don't back up. But when Clark attempts to get away, Jenna jumps off the dock and tackles him into the water. She throws the pen to Cody, just as Santa Jaws swims towards them. The festive fish then deposits Clark into the meat bank at deposit number 6, and then goes after Jenna. Jenna swims towards the dock, but before she can climb out of the water, Santa Jaws sinks her into the meat bank at deposit number 7. Cut over to the parents, who have finally decided to call the proper authorities, but didn't decide not to sound crazy.
What? No, my son thinks it came alive from a comic book, but...
So the dispatcher believes that they are pulling pranks and hangs up. Back over with Cody and Josh, who are brainstorming how to end the cheery chum. But Cody doesn't want to risk creating another shark, so instead he modifies what he already drew. First, by taking away her teeth, which does the trick until she knocks some Christmas ornaments off the dock and begins breaking them in her mouth, replacing her teeth with ornament shards. He then tries impaling her, but when the candy cane comes into being and impales her, it doesn't kill her, it just makes her more deadly, like Amy Schumer. Cody and Josh sit warily as they are unsure whether it worked or not, but when when Santa Jaws resurfaces, she removes all doubt. The boys head over to their restaurant and reunite with their parents. Peter and Caroline apologize for having not listened to him,
I'm so sorry I didn't believe you. That thing is a monster.
only to continue not listening to him.
Hey, this is classic global warming.
Which means Cody has to resort to yelling at them to make them realize that he accidentally created this beast. Cody, you probably should have just burned the house down. The family come together to figure out how to destroy the Christmas fish. They build a catapult of sorts and rig the turkeys to explode with the danger explosives. They lure Santa Jaws to the restaurant by playing Christmas music and begin launching turkeys at her. But when the last fowl fails to fly, Josh runs down to retrieve it. He uses his pitching arm to pitch the poultry at the shark, but celebrates too early when Santa Jaws bypasses the bird and impales Josh with its candy cane horn, impaling Josh into the meat bank at deposit number 8. Peter jumps in to save Josh without a plan or a prayer, and instead reunites with his son in the meat bank at deposit number 9. Just then, Cody takes aim when he sees that Santa Jaws ate one of the birds, and with the bullseye, the bird blows up, apparently killing the beast. Cody laments having created the beast when he swore his family away, and realizes that maybe he can use the pen to bring them back, which is something Caroline doesn't believe the pen can do.
This pen isn't going to do anything, Cody.
Holy shit. She really hasn't been listening to him. She tries to take the pen and it flies from her hands, but when she tries to hand it back to him, Santa Jaws flies from the water and bites onto her. Cody runs to the comic and begins rewriting the ending while his mom gets gnawed on, gnawing Caroline into the meat bank at deposit number 10. He writes a new ending in which he asks for his family back and then lights the comic on fire. Santa Jaws then bursts into flame and explodes, waking Cody up from his dream. Wait, he dreamt all of that? Ugh, I think I'm gonna be sick. He gets up to find it's Christmas morning and his whole family is waiting for him around the Christmas tree, and his family recounts the Christmas Eve that they spent without him. And while his family exchanges gifts, he runs across the street to introduce himself to Jenna and to lend her some comics in exchange for the Santa Jaws comic that Clark lent to her. Cody returns home and places the comic in a fire pit and burns it before remembering the pen that caused this nightmare, which he briefly considers before putting it back in his pocket and walking away, and the movie ends. So now, to find out, what are your chances of suffering survivor's guilt? This is where we take a look at our main characters and the death that surrounds them to determine your odds of surviving this movie. We start off our meat bank withdrawals with Caroline getting ungobbled at withdrawal number 10, preceded by Peter outswimming Santa Jaws at number 9. We then get Josh getting depaled at withdrawal number 8, led by Jenna water jogging away at withdrawal number 7. Clark outtreads Santa Jaws at withdrawal number 6. Steve gets D8 at withdrawal number 5. Georgia gets de-lassoed at withdrawal number 4. This elf gets his legs back at number 3. Mike leaves lights in the propeller at withdrawal number 2. And we wrap up our meat bank withdrawals with Grandpa Joe regurgitating out of the meat bank at withdrawal number 1. And lastly, we've got Cody, who wished his family away but then got them back, unlike what would have happened if he would have just listened to the lighter, which means that out of a total of 11 characters, only none of them die, giving you a 100% chance of suffering survivor's guilt. Given those odds, how many years could Grandpa Joe possibly have? I mean, seriously, it can't be that many. And if this is your first time on my channel, go ahead and subscribe so that you might have a Merry Christmas. And a huge thanks to my patrons: Chris D, Sackhead Ed, Bubba T, Max H, Macabre Python 18, Video Creep, Poppy Ulio, Valentina P, Mintrix, Brady D, Matthew, Vids for You, Mr. Nightmare Fuel, Maxwell the Kaiju Man, Lobotomite, Whiskey, and Tobias 4223. Thank you guys so much for your support. I seriously appreciate it. And as always, guys, thanks and don't die.